This particularly obscure archetype comes from the GX era, where it was used by Momoe Hamaguchi, which was one of the two Asuka's cheerleader BFF buddy girls. Alright, so that's a thing. Um, since such a role was assigned to her, only one card in total was known that was in her deck, and one of those cards is one of the cards from this archetype, and one of the most heavily feared meta cards, I might add. So yeah, we're taking a look at the Rescue Squad archetype, and yeah, you know what that means. Let's start with the monster lineup and start with said monster which appeared in the anime, that being the titular Rescue Cat. It's a level 4 beast with 300 attack and 100 defense. All of the monsters from the archetype share the stat line. And its effect is that you can send this card to the graveyard, special summon 2 level 3 or lower beast type monsters from your deck, but they have their effects negated. Also, they are destroyed during the end phase. You can only use this effect once per turn. So, to some of you who might not know, this card spends quite some time on the ban list because of this effect. In fact, this is the errata version of the card. The unerrata version of the card did not negate the effects of the monsters it brought out. Meaning, this card was a 3-off staple in X-Sabers and basically pushed them to the top of the meta and basically made them a tier 1 deck in an instant. I think they first limited this card with the old effect, and it still wasn't enough. The X-Sabers were still a very strong and very powerful Synchro Spam deck, so they had to ban this card and eventually make an errata which negates the effects of the monsters it brings out, effectively making it less impactful. But even today, where Rescue Cat and in fact all of the Rescue Squad is at 3, she still sees some competitive play due to the fact how good this effect is. It sees plays in Ojamas, in Raccoon variants, and yeah, it's basically a really nice card which has some niche uses. But if we're being honest, nowadays I believe she's outclassed by Obedience Scolded because it lets you bring out one more monster. So yeah, but hey, it can make an Achuria Beast in a pinch. So yeah, it's a great card with certainly some major stories to tell. Also a very great card is Rescue Rabbit, who I've actually mentioned quite a few times during my older videos. And this one has the following effect. Cannot be special summoned from the deck. You can banish this face-up card you control. Special summon 2 level 4 or lower normal monsters with the same name from your deck, but destroy them during the end phase. You can only use this effect of Rescue Rabbit once per turn. Also a pretty feared meta card, since this thing was actually used quite heavily in some dinosaur builds, believe it or not, because this thing was able to bring out 2 Sabersauruses, and then they, since dinosaurs have universal access to Evolzar Dolga and Evolzar Logia, it basically may have made them have instant access to rank 4 Solemn Strike and Solemn Judgment on legs. It's just that good. And then basically they made him limited. And yeah, it dampened its usage due to the fact that this little rabbit needs to get banished in order to activate this effect. But there were many cards that came later which could easily loop this guy around and recycle him for repeated usage, such as Cypher Lord Omega, for example. So yeah, nowadays we have this guy at 3 for the reminder of how good this card used to be. So yeah, if there's a surge of normal monster, level 4 normal monster archetypes that are actually pretty decent, I might not be surprised to see this guy go back to 1 eventually. And that was the better part of the archetype. Now we're going on to a bit of the less visited part of the forest. And first of which we have Rescue Ferret. You can shuffle this card you control into the deck, special summon monsters from your deck except Rescue Ferret, whose total levels equal 6 to your zones a link monster points to. But those summoned monsters have their effects negated, also destroy them during the end phase. You can only use this effect to Rescue Ferret once per turn. as it is pretty obvious in the effect itself, this card is intended for link spamming and basically is unplayable outside of link focus decks because, first of all, the level thing is actually pretty funny. I mean, it does try to pay the homage to Rescue Cat, but it does so in a very unconventional way possible. It also requires link monsters to work, which is kind of the deal with Master Rule 4, but the fact that Master Rule 5 is coming shortly this year, I doubt that this thing will see that much play since, don't get me wrong, Link monsters still have loads of potential to see some play. Just look at Nightmares and Topologics. So yeah, could this mean that we'll be seeing Firewall Dragon coming back from the ban list, or maybe Summon Sorceress? Summon Sorceress not that much, but Firewall Dragon could actually be brought back to 1 if anything, so yeah, can't wait. But yeah, as for this thing, it's perfectly serviceable, but not a hard staple in my opinion. And the last monster is Rescue Hamster, a level 4 pendulum monster, a scale 5. And its pendulum effect is that you can banish this card from your pendulum zone, add 2 face-up pendulum monster cards with the same name from your extra deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Rescue Hamster once per turn. Its monster effect is that if it was normal summoned this turn and you have a face-up level 5 or lower pendulum monster card in your extra deck, you contribute this card, choose 1 face-up level 5 or lower pendulum monster card in your extra deck, special summon 2 monsters from your deck with the same name as that card, but they have their effects negated, also they are destroyed during the end phase. And just like Rescue Ferret, this one focuses on you pendulum summoning and using a lot of pendulum monsters. That makes it even worse, since pendulum monsters are pretty much dead after the Master Rule 4, and Master Rule 5 basically makes them irrelevant, since the Master Rule 5 focuses on unlocking the regular monster zones for all the other summoning mechanics, while the pendulum monsters are pretty much stuck with the same rulings of Master Rule 4. So yeah, and don't get me wrong, not all pendulum archetypes are bound to this wretched curse. Some better pendulum archetypes such as DDD's Zark or maybe pendulum magicians to an extent and Odd Eyes are gonna see some mileage out of this, but not too much. But mostly the decks which don't focus on pendulum summoning are going to be more versatile than pure pendulum users, such as, for example, Clifford's or basically the majority of the pendulum archetypes. And it's a real shame that Clifford's are getting nerfed. So yeah, if you for some reason like a lot of pendulum swarming, Rescue Hamster is a cool addition to your deck, but its pendulum scale is obnoxious. Scale 5, really? That's really not how you go about things. And the final card is the spell card, Emerging Emergency Rescue Rescued Rescue. God, that's a terrible name. Well, it isn't terrible, but it is terrible to be managed with. Anyway, if your life points are lower than your opponent's, reveal 3 beast monsters with 300 attack and 100 defense from your deck. Your opponent chooses 1 for you to add to your hand, and you shuffle the rest back into your deck. You can only activate 1 of these per turn. Simply put, it's an archetypal emergency call that allows you to have your life points lower than your opponent for some reason. It is possible, very likely, but still, it's for an archetypal call. I would have expected like this effect is perfectly fine, only if it didn't have that first part. If your life points are lower than your opponent's, then yeah. The rescue squad monsters are the only monsters this card can search out, so it's perfectly fine within this archetype, but it doesn't offer some special build. I thought X-Sabers actually used to run this because it could actually search out some of their monsters, but I was actually wrong, because the only beast monsters with 300 attack and 100 defense are the rescue squad monsters. So yeah. Okay, so time for the grades. This is a tech archetype, so it mostly the stats mostly are based on what the archetype you're splashing this thing into are and what it's capable of. But I am obligated to give consistency and versatility a 2 out of 3. Everything else gets a 1 out of 3. Uh, I'm giving consistency 2 out of 3 and versatility a 2 out of 3 because of simply Rescue Cat and Rescue Rabbit existing, which were major powerhouses back in the day when Synchro and XC swarming in Master Rule 3 and was pretty much a feared gameplay mechanic and a feared consistency building tool. So yeah, I never could forget the impact X Sabers made with Rescue Cat and how frequently Rescue Rabbit was used for rank 4 plays of basically the dinosaur decks, as I already said. Having access to Solemn Strike and Solemn Warning and rank 4 form is nothing to scoff at, really. Sure, you get to use the effect mostly once, but damn, that's a good access for that's access for to some very nice and good monsters, really. And that was it for this archetype analysis, and the next one will be coming, yeah, whenever that archetype from the anime finally gets printed or announced or anything. In the meantime, tomorrow, you stay tuned for Archetype Rematch Volume 3. Yep, I've gathered enough cards for the volume to finally be released. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and updates. Comment, like, and subscribe. As usual, I'll upload the next vid whenever I can. Be sure to drop by my Patreon. Maybe drop a few donations if you feel like it to keep the show going. Every bit helps. And I'll see you all. Have a good day and peace.